Morning, everyone. New lighting effect here. This week, the House will continue to focus on the people's priorities, passing another 3 bills that will increase the number of jobs available in America. We'll advance tax relief for small business that'll help create some 200,000 new jobs. We're going to continue to keep our promise to the people by finishing our work on the Keystone Pipeline. You've all heard me say this before. We build pipelines all around America every single day. Keystone has been reviewed and approved numerous times. Even the president's own State Department will say that it creates 42,000 new jobs. But instead of listening to the people, the president is standing with a bunch of left fringe extremists and anarchists. The president needs to listen to the American people and say, yes, let's build the Keystone Pipeline.
Hear, hear.
I'll pause for a moment so you can keep writing that down. As the speaker said, this is actually a big week. And we're taking up 3 bills, 3 bipartisan bills. Keystone Pipeline, taking the version came directly out of the Senate. Charitable donations. And Small Business Tax Relief Act. Yesterday, Kathy and I and Jason Smith toured a nonprofit, D.C. Central Kitchen. It was created by an individual that happened to be a small business owner. He was a promoter. He watched individuals that were hungry and thought, I could do something better about it. Started in 1989. He took the inaugural for George Bush and thought that excess food could be used instead of being thrown away, and created the D.C. Central Kitchen. In doing so, he fed people, but he did more than just feed people. He created jobs and went beyond. We met an individual there by the name of Dwayne. Dwayne had served in prison for a number of decades. Came out, went to culinary school. He's now been the manager there for 8 years. He has a 5-year-old daughter, and he talks about her college fund and her future. That a simple individual anywhere in America decided to do something and create something better. That's what our bill continues to enhance. Too many times in Washington, they put these cliffs out and question whether you can get the donations. We enhance that to make it permanent, and we do it long before the sunset begins. Small business. Everywhere you go, we know that's the lifeblood of job creation. The expensing is one of the greatest parts of where they look for investment. So 3 bipartisan bills. You're going to see Republicans and Democrats vote for them. But you know what else they have in common? 3 veto threats by this president. I don't think the president should veto energy security throughout North America. I don't think the president should veto charitable giving across the country. And I do not think the president should veto small business growth. This is an opportunity with this new American Congress that the president can rethink what he's prioritizing. Because in this Congress, we care about growing America's economy, not Washington.
The House has been focused on creating jobs, and we started right out the box passing the Keystone Pipeline bill. The Senate made some changes, sent it back, and today we're going to take that bill up and send it to the president's desk to create over 40,000 American jobs. I urge the president to sign this bill. In his veto threat, the only thing he cited were issues in the state of Nebraska. Those issues have now been resolved. So there are no issues that the president has stated with that bill that shouldn't be able to be overcome. And the president shouldn't stand in the way of creating those good American jobs and that important energy security. So as we send that over, I hope he takes it up and sign it. Something else we sent over to the Senate weeks ago deals with a bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security. In that bill, we also put in language that prevents the president from moving forward on illegal actions on executive amnesty. The Senate's got that bill. There are some people saying, well, how are we going to get the Department of Homeland Security funded? The way to do it is for the Senate to do the job that the House already did. It's time for the Senate to take up the House-passed bill and send it either back to the House if there's something they don't like about it and they want to make changes, or send it to the president's desk. But there are a number of senators who are voting against bringing this bill up to fund the Department of Homeland Security, who months ago made statements in support of the House bill. Actually said that the president doesn't have the authority to do what they do, and now they're voting against the bill to fund the department. It's time for those senators to put their money where their mouth is, to actually vote to take the bill up, and if there's something they don't like about it, the legislative process actually allows them to put an amendment at the desk and go and fight to make that change. That's how this legislative process works. So we passed a bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security. It's sitting over in the Senate, and now it's time for the Senate to do their job.
Good morning, everyone. And as we continue to advance an opportunity economy, today I wanted to highlight just one of the things that makes America exceptional, and that is the spirit of generosity that we see all across this country. We see it in homes, in schools, in hospitals, in hearts. And yesterday, Kevin mentioned that we had the chance to visit DC Central Kitchen, right here in the heart of the nation's capital. You know, and since 1989, they have fed more than 30 million people, provided 30 million meals at least. And beyond the tremendous effort to get that food and to distribute it, they're changing lives. And it was so inspiring to meet lives that had been changed. People, because of this effort, had gone to school, had got some training, and now were employed. And it's just one of the many organizations across the country that embodies that spirit of generosity. In Eastern Washington, I visited Christ Kitchen, and we have a campus kitchen at Gonzaga, Union Gospel Mission, and there's so many more. And you know what? The large majority of Americans give to charity. It's estimated that 95% of American households give to charity, and it only continues to rise. And that's why we are advancing solutions that are going to encourage that kind of generosity moving forward. That's why we're focusing on legislation that simplifies the tax code, promotes charitable contributions, and gives certainty to people in all corners of the country. And not only does it foster that spirit of generosity, it improves people's lives.
Uncertainty can be the enemy of productivity. It holds back families and small businesses. At home in Kansas, uncertainty is one of the major issues that I hear about regularly. Folks struggling with stagnant wages and an economy that's not rebounding quick enough. For too long, the tax code has consisted of temporary measures and indefinite provisions that Washington seems to renew retroactively after the fact. This needs to change because hardworking families and businesses both deserve better. This week, the House is going to consider two bills that are designed to make some tax provisions permanent. These measures will ensure that folks can plan for the future, knowing that the tax code will not suddenly change, leaving them stuck with an unaccounted for tax burden. These measures represent a really strong start towards a paramount issue, which is reforming our broken tax code to be simpler, fairer, flatter, and easier to understand so that we can grow our economy and help create good-paying jobs. While we continue to work towards tax reform, sensible bills like this will fix long-standing issues and help build an economy that functions efficiently and effectively for all Americans.
Thank you. I won't need that. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Reed from New York. You know all these guys, obviously. But I was asked to come here today to talk about my bill, our bill, that is part of the charitable package of these tax extenders that we'll be taking up this week. And that's the Fighting Hunger Incentive Act. It's time. We care for the American people. Republicans care for the American people. And what we're talking about here in this provision is that we're going to recognize in our tax code policy that we do on a regular basis all the time. Allow people to give their food that would otherwise end up in a landfill to the people in America who need it most. Our fellow citizens that are hungry, that could use this food. So today, let us go forward and pass this bill and say to American people, we're going to stand with you, we're going to get Washington, D.C. politics out of the way, and we're going to do common sense provisions such as fighting hunger so that people will have the food on their tables rather than in the landfills and go to waste. Thank you.
Speaker, the President has sent up his request for the authorization to use the military force. Judging by a statement you've issued, I guess you've seen the language of it and your concerns, if you could express them to us.
Well, this use of military force to deal with ISIS is an important step forward. And I think the president's going to have to go out and make his case to the American people. The delivery of this authorization is the beginning of a legislative process that will involve hearings, markups, and I'm sure changes as we go through this process. And so at this point, I think we've got an awful lot of work to do before we get into what I'm for and what I'm against. I think we need to go through the process.
Your statement expresses a concern about flexibility. What is that concern?
I believe that if we're going to authorize the use of military force, the president should have all the tools necessary to win the fight that we're in. And so, as you've heard me say over the last number of months, I'm not sure that the strategy that's been outlined will accomplish the mission the president says he wants to accomplish. And his point, the president's point, is that he wants to dismantle and destroy ISIS. I haven't seen a strategy yet that I think will accomplish that. Jake?
When you hatched this plan on DHS back at the end of the year, did you foresee this standoff, or is this comes as a surprise to you that this is not working the way you envisioned?
That's working exactly the way I envisioned.
This is how you envisioned it happening?
The House did its job. We won the fight to fund the Department of Homeland Security and to stop the president's unconstitutional actions. Now it's time for the Senate to do their work. You know, in the gift shop out here, they've got these little booklets on how a bill becomes a law, right? The House has done its job. Why don't you go ask the Senate Democrats when they're going to get off their ass and do something other than to vote no?
I mean, your party controls the chamber there, so
The House has done its job.
this is the kind of coordination you envision between you and McConnell and the Senate Republicans?
Listen, the issue here is not Senate Republicans. The issue here is Senate Democrats. Seven of whom criticized the president's executive overreach on immigration, and yet they continue to block consideration of the bill.
McConnell says it's up to you.
I love Mitch. He has a tough job to do, and so do I.
What specifically in President Obama's AUMF request does not, you said you want a comprehensive military strategy, it doesn't meet the standard. What in there does not meet a comprehensive military strategy?
Luke, this is the beginning of the process, and I want to make sure the president has all the tools available in order to win this fight. And as we go through this process, we'll have a better understanding of exactly what all those words mean.
Is the limitation of ground troops a problem for you, though, when he says that he wants no...
I'm not going to get into any of the specifics. I said this is the beginning of a legislative process, not the end.
Last question.
Speaker, you said that Senate Democrats need to get off their ass. If they don't, do you plan on throwing Mitch McConnell a lifeline at some point, or is this standoff, or is it appropriate for the standoff to go beyond February 27th?
The House has done its job. It's time for the Senate to do theirs.
And when they don't?